Alright, I finished up Cyberpunk Edgerunners last night, and it's a lot of things. It's weird, it's kind of depressing, it's sometimes rushed, but it's also really fun, really colorful, has cool, interesting characters, and overall, I'd say probably one of my favorite pieces of media I've consumed this year, by far. Now, I was always interested in this anime. I always knew I was going to check it out, but I wasn't necessarily excited per se. It's pretty hard to get me excited about anything entertainment related these days, to be completely honest with you. But the Cyberpunk IP is interesting, alright? I enjoyed Cyberpunk 2077 a lot. Now, there are a couple prerequisites because I did not get the game when it first came out. In fact, I got it almost exactly like a year later. So obviously the game was nowhere near in the state it was in at release. I also only had to pay half price for it. Also, when I played it, it was on next gen hardware. So my perspective on the game is a little bit skewed, but that's nowhere near here or there when it comes to this video, because we're here to talk about the anime. I only bring it up because I do think it played a small role in my enjoyment of this anime. By no means do you need to play or even know anything about the Cyberpunk game or the Cyberpunk property to enjoy this, but you'll definitely pick up on things here and there a lot quicker than if you just went in blind. Like, you'll know that eddies are currency, and you'll know already what a cyber psycho is and already what a fixer is and things like that. Because the anime doesn't really sit you down and explain those things, but at the same time, if you're paying attention and enjoying yourself, I mean, you have a brain, man, and you can just use context clues and easily piece together what this stuff is that they're talking about. So I'm going to explain the basic premise and setup for the series, but outside of that, there won't be really any spoilers. Everything that I'm going to explain is something that you're gonna be able to see and piece together on your own with just watching the first episode. So I'm not really harming your viewing experience any, I feel like, but as I'm sure most people are already doing, if you just want to watch it blind and then come back to this video, that's fine. If you don't want to know anything at all, that's probably the best route to take. But if you are sticking through and staying with me, no major spoilers for the most part. So the setup goes like this. We are following our main character, 17-year-old David. When the first episode starts, we're seeing David play through a BD, which is essentially just a simulation of someone's past memory. But on a much deeper level, you essentially become that person and experience every single thing that they experienced in that event. Again, something you can easily pick up on by literally just watching the show, but if you've played the game, then you've already had it explained to you, so you pick up on it kind of quick. Just another example of that. So this BD is fast paced, it's crazy, it's this guy just taking out people left and right. It's really violent, it's really gory, and I think it was literally the perfect start to a series like this, because from here, it doesn't really slow down all that much. I'm sure that it's all a dream or it's all a simulation thing kind of didn't really appease some people, but I thought it was a good touch because it foreshadows you to many of the events that will take place later on in this 10 episode series. So David snaps out of the BD and we get our official introduction to him and what he thinks and what he's like. We see that he is going to a Arasaka Academy, which in layman's terms is just the rich folk of Cyberpunk. But David himself is not rich. He lives with his single mother and they're barely making ends meet to have him be in this school. So from here, for a while, it's pretty much just your little traditional story of the outcast kid not fitting in with all the other kids and people his age in his school, him getting into fights, him not getting along with people, him being a loner. You've seen this before. Without getting into too much detail, he ends up in a situation where he needs to fend for himself, and he's just a 17-year-old kid. He's dropping out of school. He has no money, no place to live, and he's just trying to figure it out in the terrible terrible Night City. No longer having support from his mother, he can't really go the straight edge route in terms of working his way up a corporate ladder and going the whole school route. Not that he even wanted to do that to begin with, but it's not even an option anymore if he did change his mind and decide that he wanted to do that. So he goes with obviously the complete 180 and the much more entertaining route of crime. He meets a girl named Lucy, best girl. They hit it off, pull off a quick little smash and grab type of gig where they steal some things from some people without giving up too much detail, and we're off from there and the series has been set up. Some other things play out in the setup, like the explanation of how he gets his abilities and where it comes from and yada yada yada, basically how the power system works in the anime. But like I said, I'm not going to get into all that because I really feel like a part of that is the charm of the show, learning about that stuff, because it was also the charm of the game, learning about that stuff. So I really feel like I'd be doing you an injustice to talk about it in a random YouTube video. Please just go watch it. So with the setup out the way, I just want to highlight the bad and then the good. I'm definitely a bad news before good news type of guy because I like ending on a high note. So the bad of Cyberpunk Edgerunners is it's a little rushed here and there, and that's sort of understandable, it only being 10, 20 or so minute episodes. Something else, and this is really just down to personal taste, I've seen some people be a lot more stern on this than others. It doesn't bother me too much, although I will say towards the end of the series I was kind of tired of it. They have like Sailor Mouse, and I don't care about swearing. Obviously I do it all the time myself. I'm a grown-ass man, but it's really like cringy to the point of sometimes feeling like, man, are you just like a 13-year-old who just learned the F-bomb for the first time? Like, why do you keep cussing so much? Stop. And it's not just the swearing, like they say stuff like noob here and there. It can just get a little cringe, just a little bit. And the last thing that I kind of want to highlight, and it's definitely more of a me problem and less of the show's problem. Personally, I wanted to see more of the politics of Night City explored in this series. That's something that really gets talked up in Cyberpunk, and despite the game, if you run through it being about 20 hours, you don't really get to see too much of it. That was something I was hoping we were going to see in this series, the more political side of things, and they sort of touch on it on a very, very surface level, but that's pretty much what they also did in the game, so it wasn't like that great. But it's also only 10 episodes. It's really self-contained, and it's really boom, we're starting, boom, we're done. They don't veer off or explore too many other ideas other than just giving you the stories of these characters playing out right in front of you. So it's not that big of a deal. It's just something that I was hoping to see and I didn't get to see, but I'm not mad that it didn't exist because I'm still very satisfied with what we ended up getting, which leads me into the good. First things first, gorgeous. Love the animation, love the art direction. It's dope. We need more anime with the cyberpunk aesthetic ASAP. Secondly, this makes me retroactively enjoy Cyberpunk just a little bit more as a game, because this definitely does not feel like these group of characters are the only thing that matter in this city, in this world, in this universe. It feels like they are very, very much so just a small little tadpole in a giant ocean of stories and things happening in a city. And I like that. It's fun every now and again not to have your main character be the chosen one, even though David definitely has a little bit of that aura, and it's a very interesting dynamic from beginning to end, because David himself has these feelings of that he is special and he is unique and there is something chosen about him, and the narrative and everything happening around him is constantly telling you, the audience, that no, don't believe that. David is not special. He is just like everyone else. There is no unique protective aura around him, and it's really on you to decide which you want to lean into, Or if you just want to stay in the middle and see how it plays out and figure out, is David special? Will he overcome the things that other people around him can't overcome? And it is a real interesting dynamic, and I very much so enjoyed that from beginning to end. Another plus is the characters. Now, there have been some people saying the characters were kind of bland, they were very tropish, but I maybe don't have as hard as a gripe with that because the anime is only 10 episodes. So there's only so much they can explore, and there are a handful of characters. It's not just like one or two. It's not just David and Lucy. There are a lot of characters that David and Lucy are interacting with. They're a group. The Edgerunners is a group, and I haven't talked about any of the other characters, and I'm not going to talk about any of the other characters because this isn't some super comprehensive deep dive. It's really just like a glossary of my thoughts. But there are just way too many characters to really flesh them out and give them all their fair shake in their moments. So yes, some of the characters are kind of tropish, like the Harley Quinn-esque lolly, or the giant bruiser, or the super aggressive tsundere woman, or the crazy pervert. Like, yeah, they are kind of anime tropish, but it's 10 episodes, man, and they're fun for what they are, and they do things outside of just their trope. Some of them, at least, you get to explore some of the other sides of these characters. So I still say it's a plus. They're fun, they look unique, they look really cool, they have dope designs. I enjoyed the character lineup. And that transitions us to the final and biggest plus, in my opinion, that kind of has shades in all these positives for the most part. I really just enjoyed the narrative as a whole. David is not a stagnant character by any means. He's not a character that just lets stuff happen to him and then have to deal with these random dumb things or situations he ends up in. No, he's definitely a go get after it character. For the most part, every situation he ends up in is from his own doing, and that's a kind of a weird dynamic because everything in his personality and in his closing thoughts when the series ends kind of points to him not being that. It's weird. Like, his main character dynamic and trait is that he doesn't have any motivation or direction of his own as a character, and it's really weird. It's almost as if his main motivation and character direction is that he has no main motivation and character direction of his own, other than maybe he's just broke and wants money, but that can only go so far, right? I don't know, it's weird. A part of me feels like what his character said and his motivations are a bit cheap and lazy, but yeah, whatever. I'm not taking the anime that serious, and that's kind of a cop-out to some people, right? Because every time something is lackluster in the writing department, you can just say, well, I wasn't taking it that serious to begin with. So it's all just personal preference, and honestly, I'm just gonna leave it here because it's getting really vague, and I'm gonna have to start spoiling things to really explain and get across my point. So let's just move on. Cyberpunk Edgerunners, solid. I'm not gonna lie, probably more of a promotional tool that had a lot of heart and quality put into it. I don't necessarily know if it's gonna bring in a buttload of new Cyberpunk fans. I don't know how many people are gonna watch this anime and say, you know what, it's time I gave that Cyberpunk game a try. I don't know how many people are gonna say that. I think for the most part, people who are gonna enjoy this already were cashed in with Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's more for them, and I think CD Projekt Red even knows that because they've gone in with the Edgerunners update and added in a bunch of like the cyberkinetics that were in the anime, and they added in a bunch of the clothes that were in the anime, and a bunch of the locations and scenes and set pieces from the anime into the game, which is really, really cool. So for the most part, I think it's more of a fan thing. I think it's if you've literally exasperated that entire video game version of Cyberpunk, here's a couple of hours more that you can feast on for the time being until inevitably, because I'm sure something else will be done with its IP in the future, we get that. All in all, Good series, enjoy it. I hope people give it a fair shake. I haven't been too much on Twitter or YouTube seeing what people think, because I didn't want the well to be poisoned for me. Either or, I didn't know if people were gonna think it was bad, but if people thought it was bad, I didn't want to pick up on any of their cues. And if people thought it was good, I don't want to pick up on any. I like going in very neutral minded. So all in all, I really enjoyed it. I give it a solid 8.7 out of 10, because we're doing decimals now. Yes, sir. Oh yeah, editor's note: music banged. I didn't want to make it like a whole point because I can't play any of the music, but music, it banged, bro. And that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, go ahead and subscribe, my boy. Subscribe, my boy or my girl, you know what I'm saying, or my gender neutral appropriate party, because we respect everyone around here. Alright. Yeah, that's that. I make videos of this quality or better all the time. Coming up on the horizon, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's going to be greatest. No, it's probably going to be best anime of for the next video. I think that's what I have recorded already. But regardless of what's next, subscribe, and you don't even have to, guess and try to keep up with my long-winded outros. You'll just know because you'll be subbed and it'll pop up in your subscription feed, and if you're watching the videos, it'll pop up in your recommended and all that jazz. Alrighty, I am leaving. Don't be weird. Alright, I know Lucy, she's a baddie. Still speak to real people, guys.